right, so did have time to play one set today, and it was a good one. I went 5-0. I went 5-0 with a slightly different version of this deck than the one that you see before you. However, I think this is probably better than the one that I played. So the difference between what I played and this is that in the one I played, instead of Nahiri, which is in this version, I had the Abyss. I think Nahiri kind of functions a lot like an Abyss, but can do so while also providing some card selection, and and it can also act as a disenchant, which I think is pretty important. So for that reason, I switched it to Nahiri. The other thing that I had different was that I had Vandal Blast over by Force, which is by Force now. I think by Force being weaker at 1 mana doesn't matter because it's not weaker by much. You know, you pay 2 mana instead of 1, which you'd pay for Vandal Blast. And then at 2, 3, and 4 mana by Force is better. So until they have 5 artifacts, by Force is the better card. So unless we see, and at 1 we don't really care that Vandal Blast is better because it's not better by much. You're not Vandal Blasting first turn Soul Ring and Mana Crypt anymore. So um, unless the concern is hitting first turn Mox Diamonds or Chrome Moxes, by Force may be better to play just because of the fact that at 2, 3, and 4 mana you get a much, much better deal than you do with Vandal Blast. And if we start seeing a lot of artifacts in opposing decks, then it may be better to actually run both rather than picking between one or the other. Um, Also with Nahiri in the deck now as well, that's additional artifact removal. So it should be in general, I think, pretty good. So I had the Abyss previously. I had Vandal Blast. Vandal Blast is by Force. The Abyss is Nahiri. I also had Council's Judgment, which is the one white card where you vote on a permanent that your opponent controls and exile it. I've taken it out for now, and I put Scroll Rack back in the deck. And the reason is that because I'm running limited resources, I actually had a game where I realized as I was playing that you get to a point where with limited resources you're sitting here drawing and holding lands, and I wanted more ways to address that situation where limited resources is out and I'm drawing lands. And by putting both Nahiri in the deck and Scroll Rack, I actually added 2 ways to turn those lands into actual resources by getting rid of them, to go with, of course, the Jace that was already in here. So we've got multiple ways to play around having too many lands in hand and limited resources in play. And and of course, by using Nahiri, um, we get all the advantages that I already described on top of solving that problem. So that was kind of the goal here. There's also, of course, Dak Faden who will deal with them. But so all told, it's 3 planeswalkers and an artifact that allow us to work around limited resources, pinning lands into our hand. So I think that may be enough. And then, of course, with Tezzeret, you can go fetch Scroll Rack now that Scroll Rack's in the deck. So effectively, all of the planeswalkers outside of the ready will do it. So, all right, let's move on to some games. But those are the changes. And then as far as the mana base goes, I've also increased to 33 lands. So it's 2 islands and 2 snow-covered islands, since we don't necessarily know what we're going to face. If you don't have the snow islands, it's not a big deal. I'd rather most opponents don't seem to have access to snow islands online, at least. So in general, I found the basic island to be better, the non-snow, when facing mono blue decks, just because few and far between is the mono blue deck online that can play 40 snow islands. But truthfully, if they really want to play the best version of mono blue possible, they would be playing all snow covered islands. They would shell out whatever to do that. So that's why I split the difference here. But in reality, basic lands will probably be better, and offline I would suspect snow lands to be better, strictly because offline I would expect my opponents to have access to snow covered islands. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm going to do view your previous decks. You can see the changes that I was describing. You can see previously I had the Abyss, Council's Judgment, and Vandal Blast in here. But keep in mind, I don't think those changes come up at all in this series of 5. So, and then hopefully we'll start getting some more wins here. There's a lot of stuff going on personally that has prevented me from playing or focusing on my gameplay, in which case I've just been playing I play Vintage when I don't have the ability to focus, and I play Commander when I do, so, which is kind of weird. Anyway, so I get a great start here. First turn, Talisman. I'm playing against Animar, and I decide that I'm going to make a second turn value play Yawgmoth's Will so that I can hit another land drop and Mystical Tutor. I Mystical for the Will, and then I Mystical back for Fact or Fiction. And then on my turn, I Fact, and I pick up two lands and an As Foretold. My opponent plays a Coiling Oracle and then runs out a Bloodbraid Elf. He hits a land off the Coiling Oracle, so it's land ramp, but he's now tapped out for the Elf. Elves into Wirewood Symbiote. So now he's going to do shenanigans with picking up elves, like, Coiling Oracle. So now is definitely the time to get Winter Orb down. So I get Orb down, play As Foretold, and pass. As Foretold ticks up rather than playing Orb Breya because I want to get As Foretold working. My opponent's, he's able to play Scrib Ranger here, and I top deck a Doretti, so I'm able to kill it right away before he can use it repeatedly to continuously untap lands. And then on his turn, instead of playing his commander, he plays Seagate Oracle. I guess that makes sense since I have Doretti out. But I'm able to Jace and draw some cards. And at this point, I've got the board pretty well locked down. Doretti's ticking up. I've got As Foretold so that I can cast things. And Jace is running in a fairly well-protected position against an opponent who's tapped out under Winter Orb, and with all that going on, he gives up. There was a point in the game where my opponent just sat doing nothing, and then finally he logged out and logged back in saying he was having computer problems. So Dubs1337 goes down for this game, and we move on to round 2, and after a long pause, it is Dubs1337. So we're down to 62 active players, which is a shame because there's a lot of reward to be had with so few players. Anyway, so I definitely hope people start playing again. I have to mulligan my initial hand against Dubs again, but I go first turn Island. I fetch a Volcanic Island to see if he has a Wasteland, and he does not Wasteland it, so I go turn 2 Azorius, and then turn 3 Vedalken Shackles. My opponent gets a Skull Clamp into Secure a Tribe Elder, which he fetches with right away. So my turn I play Breya, and I'm tapped out. I'm hoping he doesn't get a 1 toughness creature. He does. It's a land destruction spell, actually. So I am able to snag it before he can clamp it and attack. But on his turn, he plays Solemn and clamps, and this is not good at all, is what this is. Well, I top decked already again against this guy, which was really funny, and sack a flyer to kill his clamp, not his Solemn. He's able to Mana War his Goblin land destruction spell, pick it up and replay it, and then on his turn, on my turn, I basically just attack and do nothing. On his turn, he tries to play a Domri Raid, which I counter, and then he plays Wall of Roots, which was kind of strange and awesome for me at the same time. He flashes out a Scrib Ranger, and that's all he's got, but I get to cast Weathered Wayfarer, and I've now got a Wall of Roots active thanks to my opponent, which is, I only had, I could only take 1 drop. So I guess he was trying to get me to steal it so that I wouldn't steal his Scrib Ranger, I suppose. But for whatever reason, my opponent draws and then just concedes here. I suppose if his draw is fairly, useless, and excuse me, and he were to play his commander here, then I get to start using Weathered Wayfarer and power up Vedalken Shackles, and meanwhile I've got Doretti running. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good position. Of course, he has no way of knowing that I'm holding Sword of Feast and Famine and Toxic Deluge along with the Snapcaster. So I would quickly be focusing on getting enough mana to get Snapcaster on board, and then once I start hitting him with Sword, and I can Deluge to clear the board if anything gets too crazy. I expected him to scoop in the future if we got there, but I'll take a concession right now. Oops, I can do the thing to minimize. So yeah, moving on, we'll go to Malkafa, who is playing Brawl, Chief of Compliance. I've got a hand that draws the Swords to Plowshares. I was really hoping he went 2-2 Brawl here so I could Swords it. Does not, so I have to play an Azorius Chancery, pick up my Scalding Tarn, and discard. So I decided throwing away Yawgmoth's Will when absolutely nothing has happened for the whole game makes the most sense, despite the fact that I don't like doing it because it has long-term potential. Next turn he plays his third land and passes. I play Felwar Stone with a Spell Snare in my hand, thinking I'm okay, but he has a 3-mana counter for it. Fortunately, I drew a land on my turn, so I go ahead and Merchant Scroll. It resolves. Ooh. So I get Daze. Pass for the turn. I found Daze to be extremely good in this against like the pure counter decks, just because a lot of times there's a flurry of counter spells and Daze is the last one that closes the set out. So at this point we're playing a game of cat and mouse. He's got 7 mana up. I've got 5 mana up, but I've got multiple counters. I drew a Mox Opal here, so I actually go ahead and just try to cast the Sword of Feast and Famine in second main, and it sticks. And I pass. Opponent tries to draw 2 cards. I just let that one slide. I've got an active Mox now, so I'm actually up to 6 mana. And with the Winter Orb out, I'm able to cast Worn Power Stone and resolve it. So his draw 2 is not that good because it tapped down a lot of his mana. All right, so on my turn, I draw a Dark Confidant, play it post-combat, pass. Opponent's got a Boseiju up. 6 mana. I've got to be very careful. It means that he can potentially Boseiju a polymorph and I won't be able to do anything about it. He can also counter my counters very easily. So on my turn, Dark Confidant reveals a Jeweled Amulet. So I go ahead and play Amulet, play a land that I drew for the turn, equip him with Sword, Smash. After the damage is on the stack and I know that I'm going to untap my lands, I go ahead and tap for extra mana, charge my Jeweled Amulet using the mana that I floated. Try for my commander. My opponent Force of Wills it. I'm just going to let that go because I don't care that much. He goes for Brawl on his turn. I try a Spell Snare. He tries to dispel my snare. I attempt a counterspell. And then he goes for Vedalken Shackles. That's what he really wanted. So he has exactly 2 mana up, so I go ahead and Daze it, which leaves him with exactly 1 mana up. Meaning he can't snag Dark Confidant right now. And so on my turn, I actually Transmute Muddle the Mixture for Demonic Tutor, hit him with the Dark Confidant, untap all of my lands, and with Demonic Tutor, I'm about to go fetch Dak Faden and steal his Vedalken Shackles, but at this point my opponent just gives up, and that is the game against Malkafa. And now I'm playing against J Bullfrog 88. Of course, my opponent was having to discard multiple times with Sword and Feast and Famine, so I do not blame him for giving up. Anyway, I have to take a mulligan here. I'm playing against Maelstrom Wanderer. So I mulligan into a very, I don't know, very reasonable hand if he doesn't do anything crazy right off the bat. And by crazy, I mean if he doesn't play turn 2 Sylvan and just instantly win the game, because I have no defense for that. I go for Tithe. On his turn, he plays a turn 2 Secure Tribe Elder, and I Tithe. My turn, I go ahead and cast a Talisman of Dominance. Pass. He sacks Secura. He sacks STE. Some people call him Steve for some reason. Anyway, I just call him Secure Tribe Elder. So on my turn, I go ahead and cast Breya. So my opponent, he sacked the Tribe Elder and then played Ranger's Path. So on my turn, I cast Breya. On his turn, he gets to Maelstrom Wanderer into Index, which allows him to sift and adjust the next 5 cards to cascade into exactly what he wants. He decides what he wants is Explosive Vegetation, and he sends in for 7, and I take it. Now, I think I should have chump blocked with a Thopter, but I did not. So I go ahead and attack for 4 with my commander. And I play as foretold. In his turn, he plays Garrick, Gilded Lotus, makes a beast, and sends for 10. I take all 10. Again, I should have chump blocked, but I did not. Probably should have chump blocked. Anyway, I attack and kill Garrick. I attack. Yeah, I attack and my and then I lightning bolt my opponent's beast. My opponent tries to clear the board, and I counterspell. And then at the end of his turn, I cast Mystical Teachings. He's now got 2 cards left in his hand. So I have Mystical Teachings for Enlightened Tutor. I Enlightened Tutor for limited resources. So I play a land, cast Is It Signet off of As Foretold, cast limited resources for 1, and take my opponent down to just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, which means that if I can kill his commander, he can't replay it. All right, so during his upkeep, I flash back Mystical Teachings and go get Counterspell, which I can play off As Foretold. I did it during his upkeep, so he would hopefully not counter. On my turn, I cast Already off As Foretold and immediately kill his Gilded Lotus. Now I see no way he can replay his commander, so all I have to do is make sure it doesn't kill me. He plays a Brawl's Expertise, which would have killed me, but I'm able to counterspell it. And on my turn, I Already his commander off the board, play Winter Orb and off of As Foretold and smash. I have only 1 card in hand and my opponent's 3, but opponent cannot. With As Foretold running and limited resources, I draw a Wasteland, which I cannot play, but my opponent cannot play lands either. So he's got to, if he does get a Sylvan, by the way, but at this point in the game, it's not going to have the impact. This is the thing that I hate about Sylvan so much. So like a mid-game, it's often just not very good at all. Early game, it's way, way too good. And a card with that much variance that can just win the game on turn 2 or turn 1 is a card I really would like them to ban. I'm going to keep trying to get them to ban it if I can. I'm going to hope that they see the light at some point, like, because it's just such a dumb card to have to face. You know, or if they think it's a fair card, go ahead and unban Necropotence, and let's make it even. But anyway, I'd much rather have Sylvan banned than have Necro unbanned, in case you're wondering. So basically, with Winter Orb running and limited resources, normally with Orb, what you do, you untap a land and then you play a land, and you can make a two mana play. With limited resources, you untap a land and you're stuck. So it truly is very, very painful to have to play. They actually work very, very nicely in tandem, and it's quite difficult to have to play around. And at this point, my opponent just scoops. He's so far behind. Excuse me. And very short order, I'm going to hit him with Breya and get him low enough and have enough tokens from Already that'll just be able to deal the rest of the damage I need to do directly to my opponent's face using Breya. So much as I would have liked to have wastelanded a land there, we'll just look at limited resources. Killed basically, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands plus all of his future lands for 1 white. I like it. I like it. Now, was that the last game or no? That was that Calvinoxy? Or was that J Bullfrog? I don't remember. So I'll start up the game, and if it turns out it's the same guy, then my apologies. Nope. All right, that was J Bullfrog. Now we're playing Calvinoxy, who's running Sidisi. And I've got an acceptable hand. I'm going first, so I can get a turn 2 counter up. Opponent gets first turn Expedition map, which almost always means, against mono black, that almost always means that they're going to go get sorry, let's pause it here. It almost always means that they're going to go get Cabal Coffers. But just in case, I draw an Crucible, and so just in case he's going to go get like Wasteland, I play the Crucible rather than sitting on Mana Leak or Tithe, and I get punished for this decision when my opponent plays a turn 2 Dark Confidant. So I will probably have to Toxic Deluge. I did draw a fetch land, which is really nice to go with that Crucible, so I don't feel as bad now. But I have to Deluge that thing off the board right away. And my opponent uses his turn to play Grim Tutor, which taps him out. I use Fetch Land Tithe Trick. Tithe fetches, goes and gets double island, basically. And then my fetch goes and gets Underground Sea, and I drew for the turn a Winter Orb, so I cast Winter Orb. My opponent goes for a Mox Diamond, so I sack and go get a Badlands and Mana Leak that. And the reason I get Badlands here is so that I can fetch a blue source with my Verdant and have double island counterspell up. Opponent does not get Cabal Coffers, rather he gets Ancient Tomb and casts Buried Alive. Buried Alive in Sidisi is the best card in their whole deck, so I'm of course going to counter that. It's almost a lethal spell because their whole deck is generally Reanimator, and if they're able to set their graveyard up perfectly, then which Buried Alive does, then you'll probably just lose. And if, as a matter of fact, it's so gross. What do they need? They can get, uh, they can actually fetch Necrotic Ooze, Phyrexian, or no, what do they get? Yeah, Necrotic Ooze, the Phyrexian card that exiles the top card of your deck and puts counter on your creature. They get those two, and they get Walking Ballista, and then they just shoot you to death. So it's a must counter card, so I do, and at that point my opponent scoops it up. There was a weird pause in this game where my opponent like did nothing for about 3 minutes with Winter Orb on the stack, and so I asked him if he had a Force of Will. I was trying to figure out why it was taking my opponent so long. But tonight there have been a bunch of weird, like two of my opponents plus me twice had over the course of those games had to either log off and log back in or were forcibly DC'd. So I don't know if there's something going on with the server or what. But anyway, I think from here is in pretty good shape if my opponent hadn't scooped, of course. Um, because I'm going to continue. I have like one or two, I think I have at least one more land I can fetch with the Verdant. And then after that, I've got 2 land drops from hand and Spell Snare and Stoic Rebuttal. So I'm in a very strong position that I can use to rebuild my mana base. And then over the course of those turns, I'm quite likely to find more business, but have a nice defensive posture the whole time. So I accept my opponent's concession. And with that, I finish a fairly uneventful set of 5. And again, here is the deck as it is in its present time with 33 lands so that I can mulligan less. And of course, despite all that, I mulliganed, every single game? And that's probably partially a function of no longer having Brainstorm, Ponder, and Preordain to mulligan less often, basically. But so it goes. All right, well, that's all I have. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and I'll see you next time.